We got a little breaking news this morning. The NBA and the Players Association have formalized their plans for Orlando. This is now officially happening. They intend to release the schedule of games later tonight. They've also put out a joint statement on their coronavirus test results. They read, quote, in tests conducted of the 302 NBA players on June 23rd, 16 players have tested positive for coronavirus. Any player who tested positive will remain in self-isolation until he satisfies public health protocols for discontinuing isolation and has been cleared by a physician. Brian, what do you make of these results?
Yeah, I don't want to use the word good with this news, but it's acceptable. This is in the 5% range that the league was hoping to get. It's comparable to what the NBA has had in some of their early testing, and frankly, they knew that this was going to be something in this area. Now, I will point out, I've spoken to the league, this was 302 players. There's actually expected to be more than 340 players, maybe even more than 350 or 60 players going to Orlando. So where are those extra guys? So this isn't everybody. There's some positive tests that were taken elsewhere. For example, in Nikola Jokic over in Serbia. Also, there's some missing guys that may not have fully reported yet. The league hasn't released who has reported. But all in all, the league wants to get this thing going and wants to get everybody healthy. And these coronavirus tests, while disconcerting, fit within their plan.
And I would say this, guys, I was shocked. I thought there was going to be a lot more guys who would be tested. And, Brian, just to add to your point, I'm curious what those numbers will be once other people do get tested. But at the same time, look, the NBA, we all have to put this in perspective. They are literally assembling the plane after they've already jumped off the cliff. And they're doing this in real time, guys. And this also comes down to survivability for a league and the future of a league. So every single day we're having these conversations. Do you think they're going to play? Do you not think that they're going to play? I think this is a pretty firm stance point that they are moving in a direction they are going to play in Orlando. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the announcement is out. They are going to play. And the numbers of the positive coronavirus tests pretty much match up exactly with what the NHL has reported about their player pool. So that's interesting as well. And they obviously have a plan to have those players isolated and hopefully healthy by the time they want to go to Orlando. All right, I want to move on because Draymond Green and Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy collaborated on an op-ed for ESPN.com saying now is the time to reform college athletics. They described the lack of rights for athletes as a civil rights issue, noting black men represent only 2.4% of students at Power 5 conference schools, but they represent more than 55% of men's football and basketball players. Meanwhile, coaches, athletic directors, presidents, the ones who get to make the money, they are overwhelmingly white. They noted this is similar to the board members and CEOs of corporations who benefit from the labor of young black men. And here is their potential solution. Quote, in the short term, the NCAA could simply waive the restrictions that disallow athletes from getting outside sources of income. In the middle of a pandemic during which some of these athletes' families have no income, this would be the compassionate step for the NCAA to take. In the long run, our debate should be framed by a question of what real fairness for college athletes would look like. Jay, what is your reaction? I have a lot of reactions here, Rachel. So it's sad that it takes a pandemic for us to expedite this process, but I'm glad that we are here. I like the fact that Draymond and Senator Chris Murphy have spoken up about this. And I think recently the thing that's really taking it to the next level, Mike Gundy, the head coach of the Oklahoma State team in football, his comments about what exactly this means to make sure that we have football, because football and basketball are two sports that subsidize a lot of other sports. And his quote was saying that the people in the state are relying heavily on the revenue generated by players. So openly stating that acknowledges the fact that you need these players to continue to generate revenue. And it makes you wonder about what is the difference between universities and pros. Pros right now can come out and say, we're going to play games without fans. But in college, you actually need fans because that's the biggest source of revenue generated that actually subsidizes a lot of these universities. So it makes you wonder, okay, are you going to be more forced to put fans in the stands because you need that revenue and now you need the players? And it openly acknowledges that the players need to generate revenue because that's the only way that these organizations are going to survive. So we've been talking about this until we've been blue in the face. And I'm glad that now we're just expediting the process to get down to the processes of how we need to make it work.
I'm going to attempt to boil this down. The NCAA has a choice. The choice is to hold on to the vestiges of power or to be on the right side of history. I know which side I would be on. They got to decide what they want to do going forward. And their past history does not indicate the direction that Draymond and the senator are talking about.
We just showed that video, and I forget which school it's from, of the bank of televisions in the cold tub. I know that in theory, it's the football players who watch those televisions, but I think they would prefer money going to their families, possibly to put food on the table. The system we have now is so clearly unfair, so clearly exploits athletes. It is so clearly based in a system that grew out of a culture that saw black and brown bodies as good for one thing. That I am absolutely certain, as you say, Brian, the right side of history, I am certain it will eventually change, just like we saw laws in the 1960s change. And just like those laws, I am also certain that when we look back on this system years from now, people are going to be amazed that the general public ever thought it was okay. It is that much of a degree to me. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.